to the video. And what's up, people? How's everyone? It's fucking boiling. Oh god, honestly. Yeah, the weather is absolutely hot, man. Like, this feels like I'm on holiday. But I thought I should do a quick transfer reaction kind of thing. And to be fair, I've not really been posting as much. There's been a lot of nothing going on. The Tonali to Spurs, I'm not buying it. I don't think he goes Spurs. The Fernandes to Spurs, again, I'm not buying it. Don't think he goes there. Jeremy Monga has agreed to go to Arsenal now, so that looks like it's going to be finalised. The Tzolis stuff has gone quiet. What else? The Rodgers, it looks like he prefers Arsenal over Chelsea, and also trying to get a deal around that. They're talking about 120. Stay away. Even for 120, we've lost our flipping minds if we're paying 120 million for Morgan Rodgers. Like, guys, I think I made the video when we initially linked with him. I said I'm not keen on that signing, and I'm still not. And for 120 million, we're getting absolutely fleeced. So if that's the case, stay away. Not really with it. Just before I get onto the Julian stuff, what was I gonna say? Odegaard and Havertz potentially looking as the two big sales. I'm with it. I like Odegaard, and I also think, whilst we're in good spirits, it's also time to analyze a lot of the players that have been in this squad for a very long time and have been kind of pulling their weight a little bit. I think we've reached a stage now where there's a lot of players who've been at the beginning of this kind of title race that we now kind of need to start looking at moving away from. And Odegaard and Havertz are two of those players. Personally, it's apparent that one of them is going. I would always choose Havertz because I just think this signing in general has completely imbalanced this whole team from top to bottom. Wherever he plays, the balance just never seems to be there. Whether that's in midfield, whether that's up front. I know he does a little bit here and there, and he comes in clutch. But if you're looking at his overall Arsenal career, would you say that it's been a success or it's been a failure? I'm more leaning towards a failure in the sense that we bought you for big money. You was meant to be the answer to whatever Arteta was looking for, which was the midfield position, the 8 position, and you haven't been that 8 position. You've been a striker, and an average one, if we're being completely honest, guys. Take away from the goal he scored in the Champions League, and I know some people are going to use that, or the Burnley one. Look at his overall Arsenal career up top. It's been awful. It's not been the glamour that we all thought it would be. I said, if you are going to play him up front, because the other option is playing him in the midfield, and playing him in there almost certainly loses us pretty much any game that we ever do try him in there. So it's one of those things. By Leverkusen, look, we will pay for the transport there. On the other side, Odegaard, again, he's been on the decline as well. But at least for the very minimum, when he does play in the midfield, we at least notice your presence within the team. You try and get on the ball and try and do something on the ball, and he has qualities that I do like Odegaard. My issue is with Odegaard is the fact that he's our sole 10, and I don't think he's a 10, and I think everyone can now finally realise that. And whether he's a captain or not, look, I think I'm past that now. We had Aubameyang as a captain, and he wasn't the most vocal captain we had. And with Odegaard, there's different types of captains. Again, I bring back Aubameyang. Aubameyang was a captain because he led by his performances on the pitch. And the same with Odegaard. Odegaard was a captain. He's a captain because he leads with his performances on the pitch, to say the least. And contrary to what we think, a lot of the players have said behind the scenes, he's vocal and all these things. But either way, enough of the sentimental crap. One of them has to go personally. And if it's Havertz, I'll be elated, and if it's Odegaard, I'll be a bit disappointed, but I'll be like, okay, cool. It still makes sense because he's got 2 years left on his current contract, and we shouldn't be looking to extend it because his injury record is scaring the life out of me, and also it opens the pathway for Ethan, because I'm kind of ignorant to these links of him potentially leaving Arsenal. I think there's a pathway there for him because you're looking at let's say the right wing position. You've got you've got Saka and Noni. Noni is just Noni, Noni is not that good of a player that you should be keeping out a player like Ethan out there. And Saka, his hamstring looks like it's fallen off a bone, and with that means that he can't do another full season of games after games. He's gonna need a lot of rest this season because he's coming off. He looks like he will be done by the age of like 26, 27. And I said in previous match reactions, Saka will play his way out of this team next season, and I stand by that. And we'll see whether he plays tonight. But yeah, Bukayo Saka, boy, yeah, and Noni Madueke, if he's our backup option next season, we're effed. I know Max Diamond is there, so he can play the ball. He's looking like he also wants to play in the 10. But Ethan's path is definitely there, and he just has to believe in himself the same way Miles did. And I'm sure these two are boys. Miles can speak to him and tell him, look, for a long time this season, it was looking like my time was done, and then all of a sudden I had one opportunity in the midfield in a big title race clash, and all of a sudden, I'm now a staple in that team. So that's kind of how I'll look at it. In that 10 position as well. If Odegaard leaves, that opens a path. Even if you do bring Rodgers, you still have Rodgers, Eze, and Ethan. That's a good enough. Those are good 10 options that we have there. And if you bring in Nico Paz as well, I'm not going to pretend that I watch much of him, or whether he's actually a genuine interest of Arsenal, whatever. I'm just going to judge on what we've been linked with. Not a fan of Rodgers, but yeah, they're good enough options. Anyways, I think it's safe to say let's go on to the big. I've got my laptop here because it's there's a lot of information that's being that's been actually outlaid by the hand of Arsenal. So I'm going to read his because I don't know what he is, whether he's an ITK or Arteta's data assistant. I don't know. I have no idea. But this is what he put out this morning. If you remember, I stated there was another attacker I chose to keep anonymous. That player was indeed Julian Alvarez. We all know this. We were linked with him towards the start of January and a bit of last year as well. We knew Arsenal were interested in Julian Alvarez for a long time. So this is not a summer thing. This is not a this summer thing. It's been a while. The reason I said it was sensitive is because one of our players, Victor Gyökeres, was potentially involved. But let me just provide the facts for Arsenal. To my understanding, the following statements are 100% factual. Okay. So the player's dream is Barca. Personal terms have agreed. Red flag number 1. The guy has agreed personal terms with Barcelona. His preference is Barcelona. His preference is to stay in Spain. His preference is not to leave mainland Spain. Okay, that's red flag number 1 for me. Barca have always wanted Julian to go public with his desire to force Atleti's position. Again, makes sense of the comments yesterday, and makes sense of a lot of other things. I think it's been quite clear for a while now that Julian Alvarez won't be at Atletico this season, or this coming season. He just won't be. There's just too much noise around his departure, and which will just unsettle the team. So regardless of where he ends up, he won't be at Atletico Madrid this summer. I can put my money on that. Atleti are adamant they will not try to sell to Barca and would rather sell abroad, but it won't stop Barca from trying. Yep, we Arsenal fans and all football fans in general should know Barca are very aggressive in the transfer window if when they can be. Um, and even if we say in God's grace he somehow ends up at Arsenal this summer, that won't stop Barca in 2 years' time. So that's another thing. Anyway, PSG, to my understanding, left the race due to Campos and Enrique not wanting a player who doesn't prioritise them. But I won't be shocked if they return due to the player's quality. There were some links, towards the end of the season about PSG and Julian Alvarez. I didn't really pay too much attention to this, but it seems like there was actually genuine interest in it. Fair enough. Julian has been a target for Arsenal since last summer. So we knew this. There were links from him last summer as well. After a group stage game, Arteta made it clear we must at least be in the race for the Argentine. Okay, so I'm getting this idea that they are not sure whether they can convince him to be there, but they just want the name in the hat. Fair enough. I can 100% confirm Atleti have interest in Victor Gyökeres. Okay, Andrea Berta. Actually, we did see some links with. A couple of days ago, we saw the swap links with Julian Alvarez and Victor Gyökeres. Yeah. Again, a lot of these links, guys, you see on Twitter or X, whatever you call it now, I tend to ignore half of them because a lot of these guys, you just don't know what to trust anymore. So I did see those links, but it seems like there's actually some legs to this. We'll get into that in a second. Andrea Berta has maintained contacts with the camp last summer and has explored different structures and mechanisms to bring Julian to North London in the recent months. Reports about the English weather being a reason and his family not returned to England are absolutely false. There might be false about the weather, but I'm not entirely sure he's keen on coming back to England. That's my thing. The player would be very open to joining Arsenal should his dream to Barca become impossible. So in other words, if Barca are not interested, Arsenal, you're my second option. Arsenal are yet to officially formalise their interest, but Atleti are well aware of our interest. The situation is chaotic, but my role is to provide absolute facts to the best of my knowledge in real time, not to predict the future. It's difficult enough tracking better and his 100 or 1,000 spinning plates technique. It's even harder when he silently speaks to ex-colleagues at Atleti with whom he has a lot of trust. But I have presented the facts. Generally feel a lot of relief talking about this. It's been only tracking it for 14 months. Well, okay. Julian Alvarez is a player I like. The transfer figure they're quoting, so I'm assuming it's 60 plus 60. So about 120. So we give you 60 and we trade Gyökeres, who's worth about 60 or whatever. That's about 120 mil. Okay, the actual idea of it doesn't sound too bad. I said it in a lot of my match reactions at the start of the year, and when I started doing them, we should cut our losses with Victor Gyökeres, and I do stand by that. His actual ability on the ball is not great. Let's be real. I know he holds the ball up, and we're pinching our straws at this point. His actual technical level should not be of an Arsenal striker. We've seen teams, not Arsenal, we've seen teams in previous years do move so ruthlessly. Chelsea done it with Lukaku. City have done it with Julian Alvarez. They've done it with Negredo a couple of years ago, if you guys remember. They've done it with Jesus Navas. They've done it with so many players. After a year, they cut you off. And Arsenal should move like this as well when the opportunity presents itself. There's no point in keeping a Victor Gyökeres until another 2 years. He's 28 years old. He's on a lot of money, and then you can't ship him. This. I feel like this offer may present itself this summer, and it might not present itself again next summer. As we all know, the market moves very, very fast, guys. Next summer there might be another striker on the market that Atletico are very hot to jump on the case with, and Victor Gyökeres, we've got an opportunity now, almost to cut our losses effectively. With that aspect, it's clear to see that Arteta is not the biggest fan of him. Champions League final, biggest game of our season, doesn't start him. Biggest home game of our season against Burnley to get us on the edge of winning the Premier League, doesn't start him. There's been a lot of games where it's a big game for us and he doesn't start your biggest striker. You know, City, big games, Haaland starts. Whether we like him or not, he starts for them. So he's not, I don't think he's keen on Gyökeres as much, and I think him starting Havertz, I think, may kind of allude to the fact that what's his name, Odegaard goes and Havertz stays. I think that's what will come down to. I think he prefers Havertz more than Odegaard. Fair enough, but yeah. Now here's the thing: Julian Alvarez to Arsenal and Gyökeres the other way sounds like a great idea, and it does, because he's the perfect profile. He drops into midfield, he helps with the build-up, and he helps us, you know, with the attack as well. Technically sound and good on the ball. Perfect player, and almost a perfect replacement to Jesus. Now here's the thing: if you have Julian Alvarez and Havertz, that attack is too one-dimensional in terms of the options, because both of them are too similar in profile. Obviously, I do prefer Julian to Havertz, who doesn't. But the kind of uniqueness of Gyökeres is funny, because on the ball he's awful, but he does the channel running, and he's very physical when he can be. So it makes him a great asset to have on this team. And in an ideal situation, you add Julian with Gyökeres, and you have two very different profiles. You have your plan A and you have your plan B, whichever one you want to use as your plan A or plan B. So in that essence, great. But here's the thing: when you add the context to the fact that he's agreed personal terms with Barca, his dream is to go Barca. I'm not believing that the weather thing is not true. I don't think it's necessarily the weather. I think it's a case of he has a life in Spain and would prefer to stay in Spain, and if that's the case, he should stay there, because we've been in this boat before, guys. If you guys are old enough, if you remember the Cesc Fabregas thing, I remember, you know, I might have been quite young, but I do remember the Cesc Fabregas saga thing when he went international break with Spain, and then there was I remember seeing on Sky Sports Pepe Reina forcing the Barca shirt on him and all these things, and it was almost destined that he was going to go Barcelona. And yeah, and that was just that. And the thing with a lot of the South Americans is their preference will always be Barca or Real Madrid, especially if they've played in South America. They always prefer these clubs. So there's no point signing a player who's not fully committed to Arsenal, because there's no point breaking up the harmony just to sign a star player. I don't believe in that. I think it's signing profiles goes beyond just on the pitch. It also goes on the how does he fit within Arsenal as well. Signing a player who's not fully committed to Arsenal is very risky, because in 2 years' time, you know, all it takes is one international break, and he's talking like Lukaku. Chelsea signed Lukaku. Within 2-3 months, he's on Italian. He's on Sky Italia, talking about Inter, how he misses being on Inter Milan, and how he shouldn't have left. Like, that's all it takes. So the idea of Julian is amazing, but the actual practicality of it doesn't actually make much sense. No point signing a player whose heart is not in Arsenal. And I think Arteta's kind of first principles was signing players who are willing to play for Arsenal. I think that should always be a recruitment strategy for a lot of these clubs. No point signing players who are not fully committed to the cause. It just doesn't make sense. I don't get why we would even try and go there. Like, as much as I'm not really keen on Morgan Rogers, the reports are saying that he's willing to choose Arsenal over Chelsea. So for that reason, that's fine with me. And the same with Tonali. Apparently he wants Arsenal over Spurs. Fine with me. Like, it's absolutely fine. So that's kind of the approach we should always be going with. The moment we break out of that approach and start signing and start forcing players to sign on the dotted line is where we have the problem. The other thing is also on this official release, it's obviously clear to see that the deal is actually a lot more complicated than we first thought, and to also point out that this deal may not actually even happen because of the complexity of it, and also the fact that I'm reading the language, Berta has explored the different structures and mechanisms to bring Julian Alvarez to North London. In other words, this deal is tricky, and I'm not sure if we can pull it off. And for that reason, I don't think it might happen. I think he ends up going Barca, and then we end up calling it a day. So for that reason, it is what it is. But anyway, guys, I'll end it here. And yeah, I'll see you whenever I feel like uploading. I'm really enjoying the summer. Just enjoy the weather, and that's all. And that's all it needs to be, guys. But yeah, Julian Alvarez to Arsenal. I'm not entirely sure I believe that. Not entirely sure this deal happens, is what I mean. Would I be open to it? Absolutely, without the context. He wants Spain. He wants to stay in Barca. He wants to go to Barcelona. That's his dream move. It doesn't make sense signing a player that's not fully committed to Arsenal. So that's kind of where I stand with it.